and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host, whether it be Tuesday or Friday or Sunday, or if you're going to a secret society and maybe having a drink and having a little bit of fun and getting up to all different things with various kind of stuff, maybe chocolate, possibly a marshmallow or two, because joining me today from Old Hellfire Games, here to talk about the Old Hellfire Club. And, you know, he's been biding his time. The invitation has been out. He's gladly accepted. He's riding up he's riding up the stone path on his horse with a flagon on his back and some mischief in his eyes. It is the one, the only, the dressed in black but ready to please. It's Mr. Jamie Frew.
Hello, Richard. How are you? What can I pull for you?
I am absolutely fantastic. And can I just have a juice because I'm driving? Thanks.
You can indeed have a juice, but I'm going to have to give you something for when you stop driving. But we'll deal with that later.
Absolutely. How are you, sir?
I was about to say I'm extremely well. I'm not extremely well at all. I am very, very ill, as everyone who's been following the Old Hellfire Twitter account will know by now. But I'm still here.
Which is good. I'm really glad I put you on mute then, because then it means I can just step into this without any sympathy at all and just tell you to get a grip of yourself and, sort yourself out. Because we've got things to discuss, Mr. Frew. We've got things to talk about. But first of all, we've got to say hello to everybody out there. So hello everybody out there. The reason that we do this is because I don't have an analogy. I like doing this. If you like doing something, and as long as it's not illegal and hurting anybody else, then just continue kind of doing it. That's what I'm doing. We're kind of like the Star Trek ongoing voyages of meeting lots of new exciting people in the board game scene and keeping on talking to them. I don't know. I'm on a journey like Kane from Kung Fu, traveling to village and try to sort out their problems with my voice and my hands. Or I'm the littlest hobo, except I'm not a dog. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we're trying to bring you the best that the community in that world of board and cardboard has to offer. And that's why we've brought Jamie here after such a long time.
It's been a long time. It's been a while.
It's been, I don't know, I feel like I've been walking for days. But anyway, we have things to talk about, Mr. Frew. We need to have a little bit of a discussion about your murky past. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into the hobby, please?
Oh, Richard, you had to start off with possibly the saddest story in board gaming. Imagine me, if you will, as a sort of Tiny Tim figure. I grew up loving board games. I would ask for one every single birthday, every single Christmas. And I built up a big collection. Problem was that my entire family hated board games, so I would get to play them once. And so I would play them all by myself.
Oh no.
It was sad. It was terribly, terribly sad, but it instilled this love and grim determinism in me. And then as I grew, I would play with friends, and even sadder still, one of my greatest joys was going over to a friend's house, and we would play Monopoly through the night. Can you imagine being excited by that?
I feel like, do you remember Steve Wright in the Afternoon, where they used to have the R song thing, and they used to have the background music? So if you keep telling your story, I'll reenact that music in the background. So keep talking.
So yeah, it was just the saddest of things. And yeah, but I kept the love. I kept the love for board games. And then when I finally left home, I came across a copy of something called Risk Godstorm, my first proper board game, and I had people to play it with, and I've never looked back.
We need to switch up the music to something nicer. I guess. Do you know what I mean? We need to have, like, I don't know. It's the one about there's something inside so strong or something. Keep telling, I'll do the music in the background.
Oh, I could do that. Either that or Black Beauty.
Something inside so strong. The higher you build your barriers, away, the stronger I think. This is how it's going to be. Welcome to 1980s, 1990s music night with inspirational music brought to you by me, by my good colleague. He's Jamie, he's on fire Frew, and I'll be the disc wizard Simpson, bringing you the latest tracks and inspirational music from across the years. Anyway, so you got Risk.
Yeah, I did. And, from then on, it just sort of exploded within about, I think it was about 6 months. I think I had, to begin with, 5 different versions of Risk, which I still love and still maintain is a fantastic game if you really just want to spend hours watching things move back and forth ever so slightly. But it just grew from there. And I now have probably about 300 of the things, and a wife who is desperate for me to offload them. But I'm sorry, I fought hard for this. So the board games are staying. Are
they currently sitting next to you? Are you just turning around and saying, I fought hard for these. I'm kind of keeping them. It's I mean, do you have 300 copies of Risk, or do you have other? But I have just.
Oh no!
You're kind of like Mel Gibson in that film where he has to keep buying copies of Catcher in the Rye or something like that. You've just got 300 copies of like Risk. I mean, I'd be a bit annoyed, actually, be honest, if we're living together and you kept on bringing copies of Risk home. Another one, but the government's got this buying me, sir. It's the only way that it can keep a track. I guess. I don't know. Anyway, stuff. Things. What kind of games do you go to? I mean, what's your kind of, your game of choice? I mean, did you go to Risk Legacy? Did you try that?
I absolutely adore Risk Legacy. As far as I'm concerned, you can take Pandemic, both seasons 1 and 2. Risk Legacy is the quintessential Legacy game. I just adore it. It's just, I don't know how everybody else felt, but I found that when I was playing Pandemic, it was just, the story was too much on rails, and I didn't get that feeling that I was having as a unique experience from everyone else. But because there was no story to Risk Legacy, everything just kept happening and everything was unique. And it was that first taste of what Rob Daviau had to give the world. And it's brilliant. It's just brilliant.
Do you feel it gets overlooked because it's Risk, because it's got the Risk name attached to it? If it had maybe been given a slightly different name, then...
I think I hadn't considered that, but I think you're absolutely right.
Because I've never played it. I remember playing Risk probably when I was at that difficult age, I think maybe 23. I do remember playing Risk when we discovered it, I think it was one summer. I think it was one of these things where kind of like board games at that time, Risk wasn't that expensive to get a hold of because they didn't do multiple reprints and variations at that time. You seem to be able to kind of pick up the same copy. So, like, I think my dad got it for us and went, look, here's Risk. I don't know what it's about. And we kind of ended up playing. And I think we really liked it because it had little miniatures at the time and we're kind of fighting back and forward and trying to take Australia. And, what'd you take Australia for? I hate you, kind of thing. And that's how it kind of usually played out. And then we usually used to just have a proper argument and start throwing things back and forth. But I do remember it being a lot of fun. I think I look on Risk now maybe as an easier game, and maybe that's why when I think about Risk Legacy, when I think of Legacy games, you can't help but think about Pandemic. I think the Risk Legacy thing, I potentially would pick it up, I think, based on maybe what you've implied, if it is absolutely that wonderful and fantastic.
So I think with so many things with with Risk. It's what you make of it. If you can give your own story and your own ideas to it, then the grand saga just writes itself. We had endless conventions of bears meeting to have minutes and sessions with each other to discuss who they were attacking next. And there were giant screwdrivers because that's one of the weapons that we really didn't understand. It's just marvelous. If you haven't played it, you absolutely have to. I stand by that.
You played any other Legacy games then? Have you been kind of like attracted to playing, Seafall?
I have. I have completed Seafall. It took 24 games, and we played one a month.
Wow.
It was an absolute leviathan. And you know what? I actually say I think it's actually quite a good game. It's just not a very good Legacy game, which is a real shame.
I don't think I think you're the first person that I've spoken to that's played it, and potentially you're the first ever person I've ever spoken to that's actually gone through and completed it. I mean, quite recently I was speaking about it with Sam Turner from Staying In podcast about it's one of the games that often falls in and out of my Amazon basket because it's kind of like that £24, £25 kind of level, and it's kind of like if it's bad, it's £25. If it's even approaching kind of medium to decent, it's well worth over £25. So that's
exactly.
But I've never ever felt the courage or the conviction to kind of to step over the line. But maybe that should happen. Why is it? I mean, obviously that's 2 years if you played it once a month. Does it get really kind of that good? I mean, I remember watching the Shut Up and Sit Down kind of review of it, and Quinn just saying us, buy it and take it apart in one night if you're a game designer because you'll really get an awful lot out of it. But as somebody who played through it all, is it really, you said that you kind of, obviously, you must have enjoyed it if you decided to stick it out for 2 years.
I really did. I'm not entirely sure that the rest of the group that I was playing with enjoyed it anywhere near as much as I did. But I steamrolled them, so we did it. And I would say that there are some moments in there which are just phenomenal. There are some ideas that he's worked in, and I desperately don't want to spoil them, but there are just some boxes that you open and you just think, oh my God, how on earth did anyone ever think of something so insane and so brilliant as this? And it's totally worth it for one particular. I would say it is worth the purchase price for one box alone. If I'm totally honest. But I would also say that the game that you get to about 2/3 of the way through is really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not I can see people's point when they say that having to play 18 games to get to that point, it's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, but then I've heard the same thing about Charterstone, or I've heard that a lot about Charterstone. But that's only because the vocal minority, folk that are saying, well, I played it 4 games, basic worker placement, I'm never going to touch it. I've heard folk like, I think it was Steve Tudor, from Polyhedron Collider, said they've almost got to the end, and it's really, really good because it does get very, very kind of complicated kind of thing. And I'm kind of you've intrigued, oh my goodness, Mr. Frew, you have intrigueth me. You have intrigueth me. I'd say always just on the value statement, think of it like this. If I paid £24 for Seafall, that's £1 a game. 4 people, that's 25p a game. And by hour, that's something like 8p an hour. That's the best value entertainment in the world. You couldn't get to somebody's house in the bus for £1 nowadays, if you look at it that way.
No. That is why people have to buy up the remaining copies of Seafall.
I have to look for this now. I'm going to have to, okay, let's just see. Anyway, right. So, what... But recently wise, because Legacy, I mean, this is Legacy's interesting kind of thing. But recently wise, is there anything that's been you've been getting to the table on a regular basis that you've kind of really been enjoying?
I would say probably the thing that's been coming out most recently, and this is a something that I do mainly because I want to say thank you to my wife who puts up with so much as I design the Old Hellfire Club, and that's Agricola is getting that back out.
Oh.
She just absolutely loves those Euros, and going back to Caverna just doesn't do it. It's got to be the classic.
I've never played Agricola. I'm absolutely sorry. I'm such a fraud, but I haven't. But I know.
I'm sorry to have uncovered this truth about you. Do
you know what? Do you know what happens is, depending on when you get into the hobby, I think dictates the kind of your journey into the games. I think that you kind of, I think the first game that I kind of really played and dived into was Pandemic. I think that was one of the first games that I bought, and that kind of set me down I like the kind of the cooperative but kind of punishing type games. I played, and then we moved into seeing I think I kind of entered into relatively into the kind of the cult of the new. I'm probably one of these people that will go back and then go and visit all these old classics, but I guess the thing with something like that is there's such an awful lot of new niceness that I'd like to kind of get my hands on. But I guess at the same time, yeah, do you know what? It's like one of these games that you think, I really need to go back and pick that up, or I really need to go back and play that. It kind of goes on a list and then it disappears down the bottom, and then it comes kind of back up again, kind of bubbling to the surface like a well kind of boiled and simmered soup. And look, there's the carrot of Agricola floating to the top. I can't find that with board games again. It's like Seafall. I mean, Seafall keeps on bubbling up again, and that's like the same time in the last kind of 2 or 3 months it keeps kind of popping up. It's almost like somebody's trying to tell me something. I should be doing something. But I mean, I've heard it's really, really good. I've got no excuse whatsoever but then it's like, if I was entering the hobby now, or if you were entering in the hobby now, could you imagine how many games you'd have to play in order to be kind of, I guess, up to speed, or even up with the main games that you should have played? It'd be a desperately horrible situation to be in if you were maybe saying, right, I want to play all of the classics. No, I know, but I'm just trying to make it like a suffering thing when it's clearly not. I think you'd have to quit your job. I don't think you could kind of carry on with it. You'd have to quit your job and do something else, but could you imagine?
That would be amazing. We could just live in the woods.
we could make games
foraging from trees.
We could chop down trees and make as many games. I mean, there's your paper pulp right there. You could make as many games as you wanted to. But that's beside the point. Is there anything else at the moment, apart from Agricola, which has shamed me, sir? You have shamed me. That is kind of currently kind of catching your eye, turning your head, maybe making you think of spring, friskiness.
Spring, I would say there are 2 things. The first one is I don't know why I'm quite ashamed to say it, because I absolutely love this game, but it feels as though I shouldn't. It's a game called Space Team. Have you heard of it?
It rings a bell. But there's so many different games out there with the first name Space.
That's entirely it. This is a game almost like no other. You've essentially got 6 different bits of a rocket ship to fix, and you're passed a load of cards, and all you have to do is find the icons that match in the rest of the deck. But every so often you'll receive a card that says you can no longer talk, or you can no longer use your thumbs, or everybody switch places, and it's all timed with a fantastic soundtrack app, and I just love it. It's absolutely brilliant.
is it multi? Do you have to have a certain number of players in order to get kind of maximum enjoyment out of it, though?
So we do generally play with 4 players, but I think that's perfect. But you could do more, and you could just slowly lose your mind in 5 minutes of insanity.
Oh dear. Anything else you've been playing?
So apart from that, I keep coming back to Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which is just a masterpiece. I try to stay off from playing solo because I love the discussions and the bizarre conspiracy theories that a group can come up with. And so they let no, we understand, Holmes, who killed the lions. It was clearly the Queen, and she did so because she needed more chips.
I just love that whole thing. I love the fact that the consultant detective, it is kind of the opposite thing where they're saying like, and you managed to do it in 23 moves, which means, you really should just leave. Whereas let's open the envelope and see how many kind of Sherlock did it. Sherlock did it in 4.
Oh,
he didn't even leave his house.
I play tested one of them, and I got to the end, and Sherlock did it in none at all, and I just wanted to pour my drink over the designer. He did it all from the newspaper, but it was so clever. I had to clap, had to applaud.
There's just no need for that, is there? There's no need for that. There's certain kind of like, you're just like, oh, come on, give us a chance. Go and muck up, Go and just make a mistake. On your game journey, the design side of things, what kind of piqued your interest into the designing side of things? I mean, were you the type of person on loving Risk and Risk Legacy so much? Were you the type of person that actually started off by kind of putting together your own little kind of war game, strategy game before you went down anything else?
Oh, I'm afraid to say you've hit the nail on the head. I do have some homebrew additions to Risk Legacy. One based on Iron Sky, where you have Nazis from the moon, and one cyber Napoleon who comes up from buried under the earth. And I suppose it just comes from having spent all those years playing the game myself, that I would want to design and home rule stuff and come up with new ideas to make stuff more interesting. And that's, I suppose, where all the designing came from. And then slowly it just grew out from there.
I mean, with you mucking around with stuff a lot yourself, I mean, how long was it before you were putting it out in front of other people and letting them kind of test the wares? Or is that a difficult thing to do? I mean, to me, there's a big step from having an idea to start to put it on paper. And then there's a bigger step to actually finishing the rules and actually having something you can play. And then there's the biggest step, which seems to actually be, it's the validation thing, isn't it? It's kind of like, it is Michael J. Fox out of Back to the Future. I mean, what happens if I do this and they think I'm terrible at it, kind of thing.
You see, it's bizarre because I normally feel like that. I totally get it, but at least at this time with the Old Hellfire Club, I finished. I had the idea. I'd made the prototype within a week, and I just looked at it and I thought, this could work. Okay, playtest this weekend. And it worked.
Did you kind of keep it loosey-goosey at the beginning? Were you kind of, when you're first going out there and playtesting, were you kind of like, people were saying, maybe, you should allow you to do that. And you're just like going, yeah, you just do that. On you go. Let's see what happens. So did you, as I say, were you kind of like quite loose with the kind of the testing? Did you kind of let people just, if somebody came up with an idea, where you kind of like, yeah, knock yourself out, have fun, see what kind of happens?
Oh yeah, totally, absolutely. It was just a really nice feeling to see people enjoying something that I'd made, and if they could find a way to make it even better, that was amazing. And it went through. I mean, the basic structure has kind of stayed there since the beginning, but the number of times that the cards have been through revisions, it's just mind blowing. And now my hard drive looks so much worse for it. But
do you keep the revisions, all of the revisions from the beginning, so you can refer back to them in terms of kind of like what works and what doesn't work?
Oh, absolutely. Embarrassingly so. It's sometimes I just like to go back and go, my God, this looks so much better than it used to. Because it looks amazing. But my word, what the hell was I thinking to start with?
But I think you have to go through that, don't you? I think you have to go through the evolution. I think you have to be willing to kind of let things go and add stuff on and step back and, you know, be willing to kind of let it change, because I know that, you know, you could be one mechanic away or 3 cards away from achieving kind of absolute brilliance with something. I think it's all part of the development side of things, I reckon.
Absolutely. You just got to let stuff happen and see where it goes. And sometimes it just comes and it just falls into place.
So the question is, right, in terms of the game and in terms of the theme, what came first? Because the old Hellfire Club, as far as I was aware, was basically a place where the kind of the visionaries, politicians, famous people of the time, went to just get involved in depravity, despicable acts, and kind of, you know, all different types of kind of like various fun and games, and getting basically as drunk as possible, and then just letting the kind of the chips lie. So my question to you, sir, is, was it the mechanics of the game that you kind of came up with first, and then you were looking for something to fit it? Or did you read about the Old Hellfire? I think, how did I read it? Do you know what I found about the Old Hellfire Club? I think to do with Benjamin Franklin. I think.
Yes.
I think he was like a patron, and he was,
he was indeed.
And he liked to go along. So I guess my question to you is, was it reading about the Old Hellfire Club that you decided, I need to make a game of this? Or was it a case that you had a really, really good kind of set of mechanics that you decided, I need to find a theme for it?
It's really, really hard to try and separate the two, because the game as a sort of basic idea came together so quickly. I think, to be honest, the mechanics sort of evolved out of having played and loved Once Upon a Time by James Wallace to begin with. But I knew vaguely about the Old Hellfire Club anyway. And so when I was sat down thinking, okay, how can I improve? How can I make a storytelling game even more exciting? And I basically came up with the idea of a pub argument simulator, and that it just built on there. And I thought, okay, well, who's going to have the best possible pub arguments? Well, it's going to be Victorian drunks, because, and it has to be aristocratic Victorian drunks. And okay, the Hellfire Club, and that's how it happened.
So from that first idea, you said like the game itself kind of formed really, really quickly. But then you said, well, through the iterations, I've kind of improved it and did it. Do you think, were you at the point where you were kind of thinking early on in the development, let me just put this out there and see what people kind of think? And looking back on that now, you're like thinking, well, that was never even close to kind of being what it should be, kind of thing. Are you glad with all the kind of the work? Because you've been working on this for a while. Are you glad you kind of held back and kept kind of refining it rather than jumping out the window as soon as you had kind of like the first form of the game?
Definitely. And part of it has just been that some ideas needed some fine tuning. So we've got, as part of the game, there are sort of one-shot powers that players can use every turn, and they just need tweaking enough in order to make sure that they're not game breaking, and then adding in little extra ideas to make sure the scoring stays balanced and everyone has a chance. And sometimes it's just thematic. It's some of the cards that I came up with at the beginning they just weren't funny enough. And so you shift away from one idea and then suddenly something lands in your lap and you go, okay, brilliant. We absolutely need an opportunity to rampage through the British Museum. We didn't have it, but now we have.
In terms of the game, I mean, let's talk about the game. Let's talk about the game itself first. I also want to talk about the incubation period in terms of marketing. But the game itself, how do you play it? If I'm sitting around and, I mean, is it a 2-player game? Do you need like a minimum number, like 5 players? Is it going to work with 10? Is there kind of like an infinite number of people it could work with, basically?
Oh, and now I'd say that you can definitely get a very good game out of 2. I've done plenty of playtesting conventions, just 2 people, and they've loved it. I would say optimum number is 4, but we've gone up to 8, and it's still a fantastic game.
Okay. How does one play around, Mr. Frew?
Around is a very simple thing. You first of all you deal out cards to all of the players, and these are the boast cards. Each of them come in one of 10 suits. With a number on them, and these suits represent different aspects of Victorian life. Some things are relatively mundane. There are places and there are people, and some of them are rather more exciting things that you can weave into your adventure. There are crimes. There is tea time. There are motives. All the things that you can just drop into your adventure as you talk. And what you will do is you will take a card, you will lay it down, and you will start telling your story, weaving the various different aspects in. So, for example, you might tell the story of how you were out committing treason in Billingsgate Fish Market when all of a sudden Karl Marx appeared. And you will lay these various cards down as you do. But if any time anyone else has got a card in the same suit that's of a lower value, the lower value cards being the more pathetic things in the suit, they can challenge the adventure that you're recounting and call you a liar and a cad and say you weren't doing this thing, you weren't. Karl Marx didn't suddenly appear. It was David Livingstone. And when that happens, they have proven you wrong, that you were trying to exaggerate your story, and you lose all of the pennies for gin that you would have collected that round. And so it continues as you recount your collective adventure, all of you constantly arguing and calling each other liars.
So you want to kind of like play the cards as you go and maybe keep some of the lower cards for kind of the end of the games as
Precisely.
Things go. Do people kind of accumulate kind of gin money the further in the game as they go?
Absolutely. So if you play a particularly high value card, you get bonus pennies. If you play the largest number of cards of a particular suit over the course of the game, then we have these little these little markers called the benefactors, who are the crowned heads of Europe, who for no apparent reason are having a meeting in this gin shop, who like listening to pub stories, and if they like particular aspects in their story, and so they will give you bonuses if you play cards of that suit. And so it's over the course of the game, you'll start picking up your pennies, but you are never safe. Your pennies can be stolen at any time.
So you can get the bonuses as you go. So is it a case of, is it a kind of like a risk reward kind of thing that you could decide at the beginning of the round? You can say, right, okay, I was off to Billingsgate to buy myself a hat. On the way, I happened to be accosted by 4 gentlemen who wanted me to gamble and see who could basically race a painted pig through the streets of lower Marlborough Lane or whatever, and then you could decide only that round to maybe play like for 3 cards instead of going for everything, or you can continue playing cards with the risk that somebody would jump in with a lower card of the same suit and just say, "You are talking nonsense, Mr. Simpson, and I am taking your money from you."
Absolutely. So underneath this storytelling adventure, you've got a game of subtle hand management and risk reward constantly going on in the background, which means ultimately that if someone doesn't like telling stories, someone's a bit shy, or just enjoy it, as happens to be the case with some of the people in my gaming group, they don't have to tell the story. They can just play the cards and move on to the next person, who can then pick up where the story left off. And it makes no difference to the game at all.
Well, that's pretty cool. In terms of building the buzz, because it sounds like you've got a solid foundation for a game, and it's all about the exposure, but it also sounds like a game that people should be experiencing in order to kind of fully appreciate it. Was that at the back of your mind, was in order to kind of like build the buzz and to get the kind of the message out? Because it seems like you've been working on kind of building the noise and building the exposure for the Old Hellfire Club for quite some time. Was that also part of the plan, to recognise that this maybe was a little bit more of an unusual kind of Kickstarter offering than you would normally see, and you would need to maybe do a bit more explaining than the norm?
Definitely. I mean, the thing that I love more than anything about the Old Hellfire Club is the atmosphere that it generates. I've never seen a game happen where there aren't people just laughing. We've had to stop some playtests just because people have been laughing too much, which has been fantastic. But it's really hard to convey that in over Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. So what we've been doing is running what we call the Choose Your Own Adventure, or at least Choose Our Own Adventure, on Twitter. So every single day we've been working our way through a series of stories based on the cards in the Old Hellfire Club, and there is a poll in which people can choose what happens next in the story based on one of the cards. And so we're now on to our fourth story, and I'm just absolutely loving it. And I can't believe some of the choices that people have forced me to make whilst trying to write them.
Has that given you the kind of the confidence for when you're bringing the campaign to the table in April? And I mean, to me, you've been speaking to me for some time, so I was kind of like, when should we talk? It's like, we could talk before Christmas, or we could talk to after Christmas, and obviously circumstances kind of came into play and things like that. But you've still got a fair number of time before the actual Kickstarter itself kind of launches. And I guess, is this to kind of continue to build up the noise, to continue to build up the excitement, to get the kind of the name out there as far as possible?
Absolutely. This is trying to get as many people to have heard of the Old Hellfire Club before the time comes as possible, and also to give people a chance to try the game for themselves before they buy it, because we've got a print and play version on Board Game Geek. I don't see any reason why you should have to risk your money buying a game that you can't try. So give it a shot.
Okay. Have you thought about kind of like funding levels and kind of prices of entry and stuff like that? Because I'm guessing a lot of it's going to be card based.
Precisely.
Was that going to be a consideration for kind of like components? You're going to be putting some counters in there as well. Is it going to be a deck of cards as opposed to kind of like a small boxed game? What's your kind of your current thoughts with that?
Totally. Well, we're trying to do a couple of things which are a little bit unusual here. So yes, we'd start off, the basic version will be a small box game, with about roughly 140 odd cards and some tokens. We've just released the artwork for the coins, and it looks absolutely amazing. But we're also doing something that we're calling the bargain version, which is just a copy of the cards in shrink wrap. You don't need anything else because you can use anything that you've got lying around your house for coins. You could just use pennies. It's actually far cheaper to use real money than it is to make counters. So please just do that. You don't need a box. It's the most expensive thing in a board game. And you don't need a paper rule sheet even. There will be a PDF on the internet. And so we're looking to offer the whole game, or at least all of the essential bits in that card deck, for about £6, which is the cheapest I think you'll be able to get an hour-long 8-player game.
That's phenomenal. Especially, I mean, a lot of people do have components, and I guess it's the preciousness of the components as well. I mean, if I wanted to pull together kind of like 100 meeples, I could do it. I could probably go and do it just now within about 10 minutes. I could probably yank it out of about 5 different games and easily have a choice of kind of like 100 meeples. I think some people are sometimes, and I myself, you can be precious about the components that you have and not necessarily want to mix and match them for fear of kind of losing them. But this sounds like an absolutely kind of capital idea.
It's always just seemed to me that board games are expensive. We all know that they're expensive. But some of us are lucky enough to be able to make, a couple of savings here and there and buy a game every once in a while. But that's not the same. The same isn't true for everyone. And I just wanted to give everyone, as many people as I could, a chance to enjoy a game that I'm really proud of.
Okay. But I guess it sounds like your interest, though, is to kind of like get as many people playing it and experiencing the game, as opposed to kind of, I don't know, turning this into kind of like a venture. Do you know what I mean? It's like have an experience. It's like, here, have an experience, as opposed to here, have something you're physically owning. It's not like I know that you want people obviously to buy and to pledge for the bigger kind of box potentially, but it also sounds to me there's a part of you, Mr. Frew, which is just to say, look, have a deck of cards, knock yourself out and have some fun and some adventures,
Exactly. And it's if that helps bring an extra couple of people into the hobby just because they were able to buy something cheaply for the first time, then amazing, because maybe you'll buy the big box later. Who knows?
Yeah. And for the bigger box, I mean, have you got a price point for that where you're going to be coming in for that?
Okay, so the standard retail box should be coming on at about £15, so about $20.
Oh, yeah.
And then there will be a Kickstarter exclusive version, which will have cards that won't be available anywhere else, which I haven't quite priced up yet either. And then there's the Imperial Edition, which is going to be something very, very special.
I've no doubt it's going to be marvellous. It's going to be on like a Risk Legacy board or something like this. It's going to be working around the good old Empire or something like that.
It's going to be quite something. So the Imperial version comes in an engraved wooden box with which I'm trying to work out how to get it silk lined. But the really big addition is that the counters will be genuine 100-year-old Victorian pennies.
Oh my word! I have no words, Mr. Frew. I have no words indeed. When's the kickoff date? When you thinking of launching it?
So we'll be launching on the 9th of April. That is 70 days today.
There you go. At this time in the year 2019, that'll be said in 70 days' time. Sounds fantastic. Are you excited?
I cannot wait. Cannot wait.
Are you looking forward to doing daft and zany things during the campaign?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I as I say, if there is anything that anyone thinks will convince them to buy a copy of the game, get in touch, because I am totally open to ideas.
I can completely imagine that being the kind of the case. I think there's, I always like Kickstarters that involve the community, that are a bit fun, that don't take themselves too seriously. That kind of thing. So this sounds like it's going to be kind of serious, but a laugh and a bit of a joke. And there's going to be a little bit of Mickey taking. It all sounds absolutely fantastic. If people want to keep an eye on you on the internet webs, where do we keep an eye on you on the internet webs, Master Frew?
Oh, you have many options. Probably, if you want the most information you can possibly get, then if you hunt out our Facebook group by touching the Old Hellfire Club and join us there. As I mentioned, we're on BGG as well. But if you want the most interactive experiences, then search for @OldHellfire, all one word, on both Twitter and Instagram. And there is a load of stuff that you can see and do and be involved in and shape.
And we shall make sure that we put these all in the show notes so that we have notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, then if you meet us down at Old Billingsgate Road round about 7 o'clock. And if you ask for the purple monkey paw of old Papa, if you go to the internet and just type in "We're Not Wizards," you'll find us. We're all over the place. We're on Instagram, and we're on places like Facebook, and we're on Twitter at We're Not Wizards, and we're on kind of all these wonderful, fantastic website, We're Not Wizards, blogspot.com or we're not wizards.blogspot.com. You can find us by email, which is magic at we're not wizards.com. Yes, I am aware of the irony of the email address. It's why I picked it, because I thought I would be hilarious. You can find us on the various podcast catchers like your Stitchers and Spreakers and Acast and Spotify's and cast boxes and all these wonderful and fantastic places. If you've listened along tonight and you have enjoyed what you've listened to, then you can do two things for us. First thing, go and tell somebody else, because that's always nice. And the second thing is to jump onto Apple Podcasts and consider giving us a rating or a review. If you are going to be giving us a rating or a review, don't give us a 10, because it makes me big-headed. But don't give us a 1, because otherwise I get sent down to the kitchens to do the dishes, where I shall cry. Give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average. We are just this little bit average. But the person who's not been average tonight is rather exemplary, rather magnificent, rather extraordinary, Mr. Jamie Frew.
Thank you for coming. Good sir.
Thank you for coming on, sir. I doffeth my hat at you and wish you a speedy, good journey. There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Jamie?
No, definitely not.
Absolutely not. Thank you. We are going to tell tales. We're going to have laughs. We're going to have a drink. We're going to maybe exaggerate the facts that are, that we spout out before us, but we are definitely not with us. No. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So this is goodbye from Mr. Frew. Say goodbye, sir.
Goodbye, sir.
Every single time. And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll6s.com. And as I say, it's only 70 days. We shall make sure we put notes in the show notes so that you have notes to show, so you have no excuse. When you've got your notes in front of you and you don't know what to say, you can just say what you want and just hope that you get away with it, unless somebody comes in and says that you're talking balderdash. Man or woman, you need to prove yourself, otherwise you're going to lose all your money for your gin. But until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. is he early? He arrives precisely when he means to.